Yeah, good morning, everybody. What is it? It's Tuesday, the 14th of October, and coming to you to talk about the grain marketing update. I'm Matt Bennett, grain marketing consultant for Beck's hybrids. And, you know, basically, I've been in the middle of harvest, just like the rest of you that are listening to this. I'm assuming most of you that are listening. And we actually finished on Monday. We could have gotten done possibly on Saturday. And quite frankly, my crew said that they didn't want to work late Saturday for like the 25th day in a row. So we decided let's go ahead and quit. We had one small field to go, and we were able to finish there on Monday morning, get everything moved home. Trying to figure out whether we're going to do groundwork or not. It's dry as a bone in our part of the world. We have creeks and um, creeks that are dry that I've only seen happen a couple times in my entire life. And so, kind of wanting a little bit of moisture before we actually get out there, and get into the field as far as field work goes. But as far as the markets are concerned, right now it's just a pretty dead time. Last week, we lost ground on both corn and soybeans. A big reason for that was, of course, the sell off there on Friday. And so on Friday, we sold off beans double digits, corn was down 5 or 6 cents. And essentially what happened is that China came out and said they're going to put some export restrictions and on rare earth metals, which, quite frankly, they control the lion's share of the world's rare earth metals. First of all, as far as the having them. Second of all, refining them is a big thing for them as well. And that clearly is a big deal as far as computer chips and things like that. And so, President Trump came out and said that he was going to slap an additional 100% tariff on China. And so essentially most markets sold off. Clearly it was bad news for the soybean market, but we saw your equities market sell off as well, and a whole host of issues, I guess, with the markets. Then over the weekend, what we found was President Trump kind of walked back what he said and say, hey, everything's okay. I think China made an error in judgment as far as how they talked to the rest of us about this rare earth metal situation. And he said, I think everything's going to be okay. As of here today, Tuesday morning, all indications are that the meeting between President Trump and Xi is still on towards the end of this month. There's also going to be negotiations that are set to happen supposedly over the next several days, and there were conversations over the weekend as well. I'm sure it was a tenuous situation, but regardless, this is very much a big issue for us in ag, of course. Whenever we look at China's I guess what they do in the world as far as importing soybeans, they import more soybeans than anybody else in the world by multiples, and so essentially they have been in the past, like for instance last year, they actually imported 19% of our crop as far as soybeans were concerned. And so, it's a big deal whether or not they're going to be taking on some of our soybeans. Now, as far as where they were at for the month of September, they imported more beans for the month of September than what they had ever before. None from the U.S. The lion's share was from, of course, Brazil. They've also imported 40 cargoes from Argentina whenever, at the same time that we were working with Argentina on a currency swap. And so essentially a lot of us felt frustrated with that situation, that we were essentially viewed as trying to help out Argentina. At the same time, they took their export tax off their soybeans, sold a ton of beans to China. Those would be more for the November, December timeframe. Now, if we're going to look at this thing and say, hey, can they still buy soybeans off the U.S.? The indications are that if they wanted to dip into their reserves, they could actually neglect buying any beans off the U.S. this year. If that were to be the case, it would not be a good thing for the bean market. And quite frankly, the only thing that would be able to rally this bean market of any sizable nature would be some sort of an issue in South America as far as weather's concerned. Now, for some of you, you probably see the videos I do with Eric Snodgrass.
And we'll be doing another one here in the next day or two. And I encourage you, if you go to agmarket.net, you can get to where you can get access to some of that stuff. But last week, whenever I talked to Eric, essentially Brazil's in a really good situation right now, a little bit on the dry side, but it's allowing them to progress very rapidly as far as their first crop soybeans are concerned. That, in essence, gives them also the ability to get those harvested in a timely fashion, which means that there's a very good chance that we'll see, decent safrinha acreage again this year. That's if the Brazilian grower feels like they can make money as far as planting corn is concerned. Clearly, a lot of us are in the same type of situation around the world, looking at fertilizer prices, looking at input prices, trying to figure out just how heavy do we want to go with corn acres. So some of the biggest factors that I see coming up are we've got a lot of old corn. I mean, there's no doubt that this was a big crop. USDA report, obviously we didn't get one this last week. Typically you get an October WASDE, you come out, you find out what the yield is, they give you new carryout. We knew that the report was probably not going to be a friendly one, given the fact that it's a September ending stocks report, quarterly stocks, but end of stocks for the marketing year came up with 200 million more bushels of corn. With that being the case, we felt like your carryout number was actually going to grow even if the corn crop got a little smaller. Now, I know a lot of folks feel like this corn crop should get smaller, the yield should go down somewhat, and I would agree. I think to an extent, you're going to see that. I do feel like there's been a very interesting dynamic, and a lot of growers in Iowa have shared with me that disease pressure was so strong that even with fungicide applied, it just didn't yield what they thought it was going to yield. For instance, August 1st. Illinois growers, August 1st, thought that they had a massive crop, and then we didn't get, in a lot of places, we didn't get another rain. I'll tell you from my own personal experience, our corn was actually better than what we thought it would be. It really was impressive. It definitely was not as good as what we've had the last couple of years. I would say our whole farm average is going to run about 20 bushel under our record. But at the same time, we're probably looking at around a 230 whole farm average, which quite frankly, going into harvest, I would have said anything over 200, I'd be happy with, considering we went about 10 weeks without rain. And so, I think it's going to be interesting as we move forward just to see how long is it going to take to chew through all of this old corn. We clearly brought more old corn into this year than what we thought, first of all. Second of all, it's a big crop just due to the fact that we had massive acreage. So if you go ahead and start dropping this yield down a little bit, there's a lot of demand that the USDA has forecasted that they can actually pull right back out of the balance sheet. We need to see USDA numbers. Typically, the market trades those. All of your computer algorithms, that's exactly what they look at. Whenever those reports drop, they're looking for, hey, what's the acreage? What's the carryout? And then computers trade that report very rapidly. It doesn't take long at all. So whenever I look, for instance, at December corn, 411, that's lowest we've seen for a while. If I look out at D's 26, 452 is what we see right now. I don't see a lot of downside there right now, just simply due to the fact that we need to hold on to some acres. I mean, whenever I look at my fertilizer outlay versus a year ago, NP and K, if I use the same program, I'm looking at over $100 an acre more than what I used last year. So I'd say it's a pretty common conversation that I'm having with growers that they're going to scale back a little bit. If your fertility is in excellent shape, by all means, I think that is something a person can do, is dip into the bank, so to speak, at least for a year. I think that we have to look at best growing practices always, but at the same time, we also have to be able to find a way to find some sort of a break-even situation, and it's going to be tough to do. I'm not going to kid you. Do we think that there will be an opportunity in 26 for a rally? I still feel like whenever you try to figure out, hey, do we have enough acres at a normal yield to be able to satisfy demand? I do think there will be a conversation over the next 6-8 months that there's got to be some sort of weather volatility in this market at some point, some sort of weather premium to get injected into this thing. And so as of this time right now for corn, I've got to think you're going to really struggle to see cash prices get a whole lot better. Now, the dynamic you'll see as you get close to the end of harvest is basis will improve. Basis clearly has been pretty wide in a lot of places. That's what's going to happen whenever you've got harvest going on. But as you get out of a harvest time frame,
then you'll start to see basis improve somewhat. Now, the biggest question mark for a lot of growers, if they've run out of storage at home, hey, should I store this crop, or should I go ahead and sell it and get into some sort of a re-ownership strategy? I would tell you from my own personal thought process, I struggle with storing. In some cases, you're paying 30 to 40 cents to get out to the first of the year, especially on soybeans. There's big carry in the market for soybeans and corn. It's not full carry, not even close, but there's pretty darn good carry in the market. And you've got to assume that if you've got bins at home, because I'm switching on you a little bit, but if you've got bins at home and you're putting you're filling everything you can fill, you're doing it because there's carry in the market. We've got to step in and be proactive about locking in some of that carry. I highly suggest you get a hold of me or one of the folks that works with us to help you figure out the best way to do that, because you can do that and still keep some upside in this market and take advantage of basis appreciation, even doing so. But those bushels that are going to town, I guess my thought process, go ahead and get a hold of some of the money. I know some of you are doing basis contracts. I've had a lot of you ask me about that, and that's okay in some situations. I don't necessarily love it. If you know that you're going into the elevator, by all means, we can do that. The chances you're going to have to roll that more than once out to the March, out to the May, I would say is probably going to be there, because I don't think you're going to get a sizable rally in this market from a future standpoint until you start focusing on 26. And so if I'm hauling bushels in the elevator right now, I'm probably going to sell them. And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to get into a re-ownership strategy. So you can buy calls pretty cheap. Volatility in this market is just about as bad as it can be. Not much vol is here. And so if you go in and buy at the money calls out to March, you can do it for half the cost of storage. The only thing you're not going to participate in is basis appreciation, if you put that in the elevator. But I have a hard time believing, if we've got 50 cents wrapped up in storage to get out to April, for instance, that we're going to be able to make that up in basis alone. So then you're going to be completely subject to what's the market going to do, what's futures going to do. And so the problem is if we get out here to next spring and this market stays dead, we don't get the trade deal we're looking for, and Brazil has a crop, you're still going to owe for storage. We all know that. And so I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone for us to go in and commercially store a large percentage of our bushels in the situation that we're in. So appreciate all the questions that a lot of you have had. I've tried to address some of those here today. By all means, at the bottom of my email, you have my contact info. If you want to post questions to this, I will look at it after we get done, just to see if anybody's posted any questions for us to go over as we go in to more detail next week. We're actually going to go in and look at our app over the next several weeks and start looking at budgeting as far as 26 goes, throw in fertilizer numbers, look at what break evens are, and then what strategies might we be able to employ to actually lock in a worst case scenario, and then give us a chance for some upside if the market does actually take off and go. So I'm a big advocate of locking in worst case scenarios, spreading your risk out as much as absolutely possible, and living to play another day, because I know that 25 is tough. I get that, but 26 looks like it could be every bit as challenging, if not more. So I highly recommend getting a hold of me if you've got any questions. If there's any specific things that you'd like addressed, absolutely reach out, and I'd be glad to address those. So I hope you have a safe week. Those of you that are still trying to wrap up harvest, I know some of you are just getting in. We went, like I said, we went for 3-4 weeks as hard as we could possibly go. One of the biggest challenges for me is not overdoing it with some folks, because my dad still helps us quite a bit, and a couple of the guys that help us are pretty close to my dad's age, and so you just have to be cognizant of not pushing too hard, especially with the weather. And the weather in this part of the world, we didn't even have a rain in sight. So if you're in that same situation, take your time and be as safe as you can be. Have a great week.